Alright, wanted to make a video here talking about how we can interact with a server from a web browser. So in 2.23 we talked about creating a server socket and running some code on the back end of that and working with it either through the telnet as a client or a Java client. But we can also interact using a web browser, and this is handy, for example, if you have a Wi-Fi enabled device and you want to communicate with it. You don't necessarily want to have to write an app for that. Sometimes you can just do it with a browser. So I have some test code here. The first one is just called S2, and it's our standard boilerplate server code for Java. So we make a server socket. We're listening on port 1220. We're going to, be very verbose about what's going on. So we'll wait for a connection. When we accept it, we'll print a message. We'll make our scanner to input, our print writer to output, and then we're just going to go into an infinite loop, and we're just going to receive messages from the client and print them out. But I'm also checking to see if the message we receive contains the string get space / stop. And if it does, I'm going to print out a message, and we'll see the reason for that. So I'll compile this and I'll run it, and now I'm going to go to a browser and I'm going to put in localhost :1220, and when I do that, you can see that I made a connection, and the request was get /. Okay, in other words, I was just looking for an HTTP page in the top level. So if I do localhost :1220 / hello, right, I get a message, and the get request is /hello. Okay, so if I look for a page called stop, my Java code running on the server side sees, hey, you got a message that said get stop. Okay, so this is how we can communicate to a piece of Java code or anything else running a server using a web browser. So we can extend this to a slightly more complex class. So here's another class, same setup for receiving input, but if we get a message that has the word get in it, we're going to run this method called send page to client, two clients with print writer going back to the client. And send page just forces out some HTML. Okay, so this is the response to the initial request, and this is important. And also the \r\n carries return line feed twice seems to be super critical. Doc type isn't really necessary. Actually, none of this is necessary. But if we want to make a nice web page, right, we can say HTML. We can put a title page on there, and then I'm creating a series of forms. Okay, so I'm going to create a form with a button. The button's going to be labeled start, and if you click that, it's going to send a request for the current URL that you're on with a /start tag. And if you click this button, which will be labeled stop, it'll send a request for the URL with a /stop at the end. So what's going to happen, we're going to connect to the server, localhost :1220, and the response from the server is going to be a web page. And that web page will have two buttons, and if I click on either of those buttons, the web browser will make another request, which will be tagged with either /start or /stop. So let's see how that runs. We can compile it, we can run it, and we go back to our web browser, and let's just go for page localhost :1220. So if this is a regular web page, right, it would just be port 80 or port 8080. And localhost is the name of my machine. So if I go for this, I got a get request, actually a pair of get requests, because it's also looked for the icon to put up here in the corner. And here's the web page it came up with a pair of buttons. And if I hit the start button, you can see it sent a message that said start. And if I hit the stop button, you can see it got a message which said stop. So I'm hitting buttons here to request web pages, and the server, which is getting those requests, can parse the input and decide which button I pressed, and then it simply responds with another copy of the web page, which is just Control U to look at your source code. It's just all of this, right? And if you send this to your web browser, this is what you see, and the forms the form action equals this and method equals get sets up these pages that let me send the start and stop. All right, so let's just clean that up for the punchline. So I've gotten rid of all the verbose output, creating a server socket, port 1220, getting a connection, make the scanner and print writer for reading and writing, and here's our main loop. And basically, if I see a line that says get/start, I'm going to print out a message which says start received. If I see a get/stop, I'll print out a message which says stop received. And in any of these cases, I will send a page back to the client, and it'll be the same page in all cases, which will be, the form. And at the end of sending that page, I close the connection, right, which causes the two-way communication to shut down, and it puts things back in the initial state. So let's compile this, and let's go ahead and run it. And I can go back to the beginning and just do the bare access. And now anytime I hit the start button, it says start received. Anytime I hit stop, it says stop received. This is just a framework for doing other things, right? There's nothing super exciting about this particular behavior, but the key is, inside here, when I read from the client, I can look for these lines that begin with get, and I can look for certain strings, right? And those strings can be controlled by which button is pressed. And you can fill in fields and send those, type in values in a text field and send that, and you can pick that up as a line coming from the client and so on. So that's just one way to hook things together, right? Between a web browser and a piece of Java code. All right, have a good one. Bye.